everybody. It's Thursday night at 7 p.m. Eastern, and this is the Mo Zone with the First Lady Erica. And what is the Mo Zone? It's momentum. It's about motivation. It's about, helping each other make money and networking together, sharing information that everyone can use. And that's the pure joy of why I do it. My name is Erica, the First Lady, and I'm a financial coach. I've written several books myself, and I've enlisted the help of these two guys with some of my books. And I just knew other people would appreciate and be able to use their assistance as well. Now, one book I did not write, but that I'm sharing with people, for the first 5 people who tagged my Facebook page, is How Money Works. Now, this book is short and it is very helpful because a lot of us right now are business owners and we need to put aside money for our retirement. A lot of us are moving away from our jobs and maybe never going back to having a job again where you have 401k. Some of us need to understand 401k IRAs and different alternatives, maybe something that's tax-free. So this is a book that I'm offering the first 5 people that tag me on my Facebook page. It's called How Money Works. There's a big sucker on there. Because see, when you go to the bank gives you a sucker. That's pretty interesting, right? They don't give away toasters anymore. They just give away suckers because they're making a lot of money off of your money at the bank. So we want to recapture some of that money, and this book will help you do that. If you want more information about what it is that we do and how we help families, let me know. So back to this, the beauty, or one of the books that I wrote or co-wrote or collaborated with was The Beauty in My Mess Part 2 with Dr. Nicole Long. It was an amazing challenge because she said, we were going to talk about the first time you fell in love and explain that. And that was like, woo, very, very deep. And it was a wonderful project. A lot of great women in that book. The next book was The Joy of Living Great with, holy cow, she'd kill me. With, let me see, The Joy of Living Great. I'm super tired. I've been up since 4, y'all. So with Faye Saxton Horton, she would just totally be like, Erica. But that was a great book also, where it's kind of like a chicken soup for the soul daily affirmations that we shared. And then my own book was the Vision Boards with Passion and Purpose. And I used that book. Jeffrey edited that book. It was amazing because he just thought of things that I didn't think of, disclaimers, visual aids, just the visual appeal of each page. So he helped me go over it line by line. He helped turn my book into something beautiful. I use it when I teach vision board classes, which is definitely, it's the season that's coming up. So people are booking up vision board classes. And then I had my own puzzle books and stuff that I worked on. But now that everyone is here, let's go ahead and talk to these guys because that's who we came to see. First, I think I'll go with Léandre Larouche. And you're out there in Canada. You're a writing consultant, a Fulbright scholar. I love saying that because it sounds very intriguing and exciting, and I want you to explain that. You're a biographer. And I still have your old address up there, but I'm going to let you introduce yourself. And then first, let me just go ahead and say, Mr. Jeffrey Wright, expert author, ghostwriter, editor. You have 7 bestsellers, but probably more than 7 now, right?
It's really 8, but who's counting?
Who's counting? Along with a class, and you're going to tell us about the class that you have and things going on. But I'll stop the sharing of the screen. And was I sharing the screen?
Your flyer with, yeah, It was up
Yeah,
there.
you are.
Okay, cool. It's like, looking funny. So Leandre, it's been
Yeah,
months. It seems like it's been years. I
it
haven't talked to you
has. Yes, it's been.
February, maybe, it seems like, since we hung out.
Oh, it was in
May.
April. It was in
Or
April,
May.
April/May, something like that.
Yeah, man. Nice to see you again.
Nice.
Likewise, likewise. It's good to
And
see you both.
yeah. So you're up there. What part of Canada are you in?
Yeah, so I'm in Quebec, which is the French part of Canada. So it's the only province that's mostly French speaking. And yes, I'm here in Saguenay, Quebec. Soon moving to Toronto, but
Ooh.
still in Quebec for now.
Okay. And how many books have you done now so far?
Yeah, so as for myself, I've published one book in French, and I'm working on a nonfiction book in English that is going to be released around like the early next year.
All right. And then you've also consulted. What exactly
Yeah.
do you do in your consulting?
Yeah, so really what I do is when I work with clients, in a nutshell, I teach them the architecture of writing. So I walk them through the entire writing process from, conceptualizing their ideas to, getting the book together and publishing it. So right now I'm working with several clients at the time. I'm walking them through the process. And so I'm really there to teach them the process and help them improve as writers as they write the book that they've always wanted to write.
That's amazing. And so what is a Fulbright Scholar? Tell us about that.
Yeah, so I was in the Fulbright Fellowship for last year, and so the Fulbright program is a program that's run by the U.S. Department of State with the Institute for International Education. So it's basically this program that has two big goals. The first one is to send Americans abroad to other countries so that they can study, teach, or research, and the second goal is to get people from other countries to the United States so that they can either teach, research, or study. And so it has multiple programs, and the one that I was on was the foreign language teaching assistant program. So so I got selected by the Fulbright program in my country to go teach French, which is my first language, at a small liberal arts college. And so they ended up sending me to Pennsylvania. So I was in Williamsport, Pennsylvania. I was the French teaching assistant at Lycoming College. And so it was a 1-year fellowship that I did. But there are other scholarships that the Fulbright program gives. For example, like there are professors going to do research in the US, where there are people, there are exchange students. For example, college students in the US can take an exchange semester in Canada or in the UK or any country that has a Fulbright commission. And so, yeah, in a nutshell, it's a international education program run by the Department of State.
Sounds exciting. Did you have fun doing this?
I did, and it was lovely because I got to see so many parts of the US. So I was there in Pennsylvania, so I got to travel to a bunch of different places. Like I went to see parts of New York, Washington, went down to Georgia, Alabama, Louisiana. So it was a really great opportunity for me to get to know the US more. So it was a fantastic experience.
That sounds fun. That sounds fun. And Jeffrey, I'll go ahead and let you introduce yourself. Tell us about some of the books that you've written, especially your bestsellers, and how you help people, how you help other authors.
Well, thanks for having me on the show tonight. I appreciate it. And just let me say, Leandre, my last name is LeBlanc in
Ooh.
French. So I'm Jeffrey LeBlanc.
Nice.
Don't ask me to talk in French because je ne parle pas français. But yeah, I'm Jeff White. I have two companies, Jeff White Fitness Solutions and Yes We Did LLC. And my mission in life is to educate, motivate, and inspire people to be the best they can be physically, mentally, spiritually, and financially. And I've had a very interesting career, or careers, I should say. I started out as a stockbroker. I had my Series 7, and I had a book of business. I had my clients, and I taught them how to, invest in stocks, and, I traded options and all of that good stuff. And I eventually got tired of the business, and I decided to do something different. And my goal was to, I shifted to something else I enjoyed, which was exercise and fitness. I'm also a triathlete. So I became a personal trainer and a wellness coach. And when I became a wellness coach, that just opened my mind to just tying everything together. Because a lot of us, we're stressed and we're going through a lot of trials and tribulations, but we compartmentalize everything. And we don't realize that how one aspect of our life can be drastically impacted by something else. So it all tied in together for me to think of just fitness. When people think of fitness, they think of the muscles and exercise and working out. But true fitness is being the best you can be mentally, because you can be physically fit, but if you don't have self-confidence in yourself, you won't get very far in life. If you don't have spiritual fitness, and which means that you try to hurt people to get ahead in life or put people down, that stunts your growth. And that also can have you looking over your shoulder, wondering if someone's going to come after you. So to be spiritually fit, it means to treat people the way you want to be treated. So you don't have to go to sleep at night stressed and worried that you hurt someone to get ahead. And that's not the way to live. And of course, the financial fitness, we need money. Whether you like money or not, you got bills to pay. You go to the doctor, you got to pay bills. You got a phone, you got a cell phone, you got to pay rent. So I'm all about being financially free. So you want to tie all these in together. And once you do, then you become the best you can be. Like I said, a lot of people, they don't look at it as one unit, but it really is. And you may be lacking in one and strong in the other. So where I come in is I work on all of them at the same time. And that is key for all of us. So I've written 11 books, and 8 of them bestsellers. And I focus on positive thinking, motivation, self-help, healthy eating tips. And that's a very important topic too, especially today with COVID, because they don't really talk about healthy eating. They just talk about wearing masks. But what can you do to strengthen your immune system? Think about that. Are you stress eating? Are you eating things that can make you sick or make you more susceptible to COVID? Those little things like that you got to think about. And then I have, since I was a financial advisor, now I started writing books on financial things like investing in gold and silver and, the dollar and the economy. So we need to really think about all these different things, because they can really have a tremendous impact on our society. And that's where my classes come in. I have classes on investing, entrepreneurship for kids, and I'm also really big on Black history as well. So those are some of the things I'm doing. I'm very happy doing all this, and I don't ever plan on stopping.
I know you don't. You're 24/7. It feels like it. The class that you have for kids, for entrepreneurs, are you still enrolling for that, or?
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's just a 1-hour class. It's for kids. It's called Planting Seeds, the Children's Guide to Entrepreneurship, and I also have a book for it as well, because they don't talk about entrepreneurship in school. If you think about it, all school tells us is to get good grades and, eventually go out and get a job someplace. Well, if you look around, you see a lot of people getting laid off, and there's a lot of uncertainty out here. And I'm a firm believer in having multiple streams of income, so you don't have to keep working until you're age 65 or 70 or 75. What if you don't want to work for someone else? What if you can't find a job? It's like that old phrase, you give a man a fish he can eat for a day, but you teach him how to fish he can eat for a lifetime. So I'm trying to teach people how to start their own businesses. You may not want to, and that's fine. I'd rather you know than not know, because one day you may have to. And this is a perfect example of that, because here in the States, a lot of people are waiting on that stimulus check. Well, what if that stimulus check don't come for another 6 months because they're bickering in Congress? This is the time you need to learn how to start taking care of yourself and not relying on someone else, because this is where we are, and it's a very dangerous time in our lives. So kids need to learn this and know they have options in life. You may not want to go to college. If you do, that's fine. But there's a life out there that may be very positive and lucrative for you as well.
Yes, that was one of the groups that I was in. I was going to ask, like, hey, if there were no jobs available, say everything was closing, what would you do with your life and your time? Because people, I think we don't spend enough time focusing on what is it, who we are, what we want to do, what our purpose is, and what makes us happy. You know, that's been like something that's kind of thrown out of the door as, you know, being a dreamer or being, you know, foolish, unwise, where, and now people have become so focused on finding jobs, when I always believe that you should create a job, you know. So I'm very happy to have you guys with, because I like hanging out with you guys. I know every time we get to talking, boy, oh boy, we could go on and on. So this was the business of writing and how people would get started. There's so many people out there that have a book in them, or they think they have a book in them, or they, you know, but they don't know where to start. They don't know what a ghostwriter is, or should they just write it themselves, or how do you decide whether to write yourself or to get a ghostwriter? I'll let you say, you know, speak on that, Jeffrey.
Oh, you say you, it's two of us. I wasn't sure.
I know, I was gonna get it out.
That's a pure judgment call. There's no right or wrong answer there. Now, I will say that I didn't really talk about that side of my life, but I am also a ghostwriter and an editor. And what I have seen, because I've ghostwritten 4 books, and no one will ever know that I wrote them. But the interesting thing is I wrote them for people who were too busy to write for themselves. So if you're too busy to write, but you have something out, even if you have notes, it's okay. You can do it that way. If you are not the best writer, getting a ghostwriter is okay too. See, for a lot of people, there's a stigma to having a ghostwriter. They think that because you didn't write it yourself, you didn't really write it, but technically you did. You just have someone who's able to articulate it, or maybe someone who can, you know, put it in a easy to read format, which is what I do. So there's no right or wrong answer there. If you want a ghostwriter, that's perfectly fine if you don't have the time to do it yourself. But if you can at least put the words to paper, then you can have an editor come in and clean it up for you. So either way is good. It's a judgment call.
You know, I was gonna say about that. This is like when you're in the middle of moving and you're packing and you got to look at all your stuff. You're like, oh my God. But then if you pay somebody to pack for you, they can get it done because they're not having memories and looking at things and getting tired. I don't know, Léandre, how most of your clients, is that like the biggest problem, is procrastination, or they reach this stumbling block where they're just, maybe they got started and just kind of choking at that point?
Yeah, so most of my clients are people who have been thinking about writing a book, but they've never really got around to do it. And it's because they either lack the clarity, the confidence, or the competence to do it. And so when it comes, for example, like to the question of should you hire a ghostwriter or not, a lot of the time, people for whom it makes sense to hire a ghostwriter, they're people who have, you know, they're not writers and they have no intentions of being one. For example, they're like busy business leaders. And I would personally argue that, you know, we often make the distinction between writing and writing a book. To me, there's no clear distinction. If you know how to write a book, you know how to write anything. And writing is a skill that's critical for most people. Now, that's my personal view. Not everyone agrees with that, and not everyone wants to become a writer. I would say, just like philosophically, for me, I think everybody should write their book, but the reality is it's not going to happen. And so the people for whom it makes sense to hire a ghostwriter, they're people who if it weren't for a ghostwriter, they would not write it. And they have something that is really interesting that people need, that people are hungry for, and that there is a legitimate reason, that, they would want to put this out, even if it means not having written it, because, there's nothing wrong with having someone write the book. Obviously, it's not the same thing as if you wrote it yourself, because the thought process that goes into writing the book gets you clarity about who you are, what you do, why you do it, and so on and so forth. And so when you hire a ghostwriter, which by the way, it tends to be quite costly, and so you need to have the financial means to do that. So people, especially if they don't have, so someone who doesn't have an already large audience, I don't know that it makes sense to hire a ghostwriter. And for a lot of people, it's creating a legacy, and it's getting clear on who they are and their purpose. And, it's to matter, and it's to, really crystallize their value. And when this is the goal, or when this is part of the process, then you need to write your book. But there are people, again, like I said, it really isn't that. It's just, for example, like you have, I don't know, if Elon Musk has things to say, it really does not make sense that he's going to write it himself. He could hire me, I could teach him. I'm sure, if he put the time, it would work great, but like, it just doesn't make sense to invest the time into doing that. Whereas it's the ideas that matter. And so what I do with my clients is I'm very process oriented. And so what happens is that they get to really crystallize their ideas through that process. And so for me, writing is a form of personal development. And I would say perhaps even the most advanced form of personal development, because writing clarifies thinking. And if you can write clearly, you can think clearly. And if you can think clearly, then, the world is your oyster, right? So, that's what I think when it comes to ghostwriting. And when it comes to my clients, well, they want to grow as individuals with the writing process. And so there's basically, my philosophy is no one is born a great writer, and everybody can become one. And I think the reason most people can't write a book, and like I said, writing a book is not different from writing anything else. Most people will be able to write 2,000 to 3,000 words, no problem. But then past that, it gets hard. Why? Because you have to have focus, structure, and unity. And that's what a book is. There is unity in a book. And so you have to be able to think big picture, take a 450,000 foot view. And so that's what most people lack. And writing in general, I would say, is taught very poorly in schools. And, they teach you grammar. It's like, very punitive. It's very restricting, and kids hate it. And they teach you the essay format, the 5 paragraphs and all that garbage, and it doesn't motivate anyone to take writing seriously. And, we were talking about finances, and, Jeffrey was talking about, like all the areas of your life, and you were making some really great points when it comes to COVID. What would you do if all jobs were closed, if everything was closed? What could you do? Well, if you can write, you can't go hungry. I swear there will never be no jobs for writers. When the stock market collapses, there's a need for people to write about the stock market collapsing. There's so many forms of writing. There's copywriting, there's journalism, there's blogging, there's technical writing, there's, I could go on and on and on. And, people have expertise and they have things to say. Well, ghostwriting is another good example, editing. And people kind of think of writing as like, and, good grammar as superficial. Well, it's like, it's not. If grammar isn't just appearances, it's like, it's the foundation on which, like ideas hold. And when ideas fall apart, then the world falls apart. And, we've been talking for a while about, you know, the things that are going wrong in the Western civilization, I would argue that there's a correlation between the fact that we can't write anymore, and like we don't teach writing with care, and the fact that, you know, we're kind of like going down the drain. So I think we need more clarity in our thinking and our writing. And so anyway, to go back to my point, you know, writing is one of these skills. Like you won't get replaced if you can write, because if you can write, you can think. I'm repeating myself, but you know, in an age of automation, you know, you can't.
It's no longer the time of great thinkers, because
Exactly.
that used to be a big thing, being a thinker.
Exactly. But that's the funny thing. It's no longer the time of great thinkers at the surface level. That's what society is saying, but it's always the time of great thinkers. It always is. And I keep ranting about the fact that, you know, from ancient Greece to right now, 2020, it's always been time to be a great thinker and to be a good writer. And, you know, in our society, especially right now with the internet, you know, writing is the most important skill to have, yet society doesn't, well, like the schools, and it's not something we talk about. No, like how many times you hear someone say, writing is so important, learn how to write. No, we never talk about this stuff. And that's the most important skill you can possibly have. And so society doesn't change fundamentally. It's still important to be a great thinker, to be a great writer, but then it doesn't teach us. It's like money's always been important, yet we don't get, we're not taught entrepreneurship. We're not taught financial literacy at school. It's dumb, but that's how it is. And once you realize that, you're ahead of 80% of people.
Yeah.
You know, almost no one takes writing seriously. And if you take it seriously, then, you know, you're ahead in whatever aspect, because writing and thinking is the foundation to everything else. You can do whatever. It's like, you know, I have my main expertise is in writing, but that gives me access to every other thing, right? And so as opposed to having expertise in something else and not being able to articulate, you know, clearly and effectively for other people to understand. So yeah.
I don't laugh because I disagree. I laugh because it's so deep that it's beyond what we were.
Sorry, I went on a rant.
So true. No, but it's so deep and it's so true. And I think that's kind of the biggest complaint.
Do you have any thoughts on that, Jeffrey?
Oh man, we don't have enough time. First off, we really don't. You said a lot of great things. First off, we're not taught to think. They don't want us to think. They want us to just follow the lead. That's problem number one. People just want to be told what to do. And unfortunately, the things they're telling us to do are leading us down the wrong path. That's number one. Number two, if you can't think for yourself, then you can't really analyze what's going on so you can prepare for the things that are coming. I'm really big on history. And I see a lot of similarities between what's going on today to what happened in the past. And if you don't understand that, you won't be able to prepare for that. So you have to learn how to think. You have to learn how to use your own judgment. You can listen to other people, other points of view, and then you can say, okay, I see this side, I see this side. What do I think? What do I think? But a lot of people can't do that. That is a major, major problem, which comes back to why I write the way I write. I write things that make you think, and I try to educate, motivate, and inspire, because people, it's almost like the blind are leading the blind, but actually they're not blind who are leading us. They're leading us where they want us to go, and we are just going willingly. And that is a major problem for me. And I'm gonna just talk about COVID one more time. They always tell us, wear the mask, stay 6 feet apart, and get the vaccine. Okay, is there anything else I can do? Can we get a bombardment of information on how to strengthen our immune systems so if we do get COVID, it may not be as bad? How can we maintain good health? They don't really talk about that. This is where the thinking comes in. Think for yourself, do your own investigating. And that comes back to the writing. When you want information, where do you go? You go to the internet. You go online and you search it for yourself. And this is where we come in as writers. That's where we come in. And like you said, if you can write, it just expands you to so many other options and opportunities. My first book branched out into me becoming an editor and ghostwriter, because it's like once I wrote that first book, people are like, oh, you can write. Can you write for me? Can you edit a book for me? Can you do this, this, and this? I'm like, oh, wait a minute. There's a whole world out here. And so that just branched out into everything I'm doing right now, from one book that I had no idea this world existed, but now I know, and I try to share that with people also, because I have a book on, how to make livings as a writer as well. But yeah, you touched on a lot of great points, but I think the number one thing people need to know how to do, I know it's off topic, but you got to learn how to think. You got to learn how to think for yourself. You got to learn that there's the life outside of that job. That one job is not your entire life. Again, what if you can't work? What if you're physically unable to work? What are you going to do? What if they fire you? What if you don't think you're getting paid enough? Don't sit back and complain or just try to look for another job. Create something for yourself. That comes back to that thinking that we must start doing as individuals and as a people. Because if you can't think for yourself, then they're going to lead you down a path that you may not want to go down.
Right. So what is, both of you, I know that you've mastered discipline. As a beginner, what would you advise people as far as discipline? Because I think what happens is people sit down and they want to sit down and think that this is going to bang out and it's going to be hours and papers are going to be flying, and it doesn't really work like that. The discipline, and I don't know who wants to go on that first. The daily discipline, how much time would you put in if you're a beginner? Or even how to begin, because what I like, Léandre has worksheets that he creates that kind of break things down, where to start. I think you start with the idea and then you go into some type of free flow, like you allow them to free flow, but it's your method. So Léandre, how do you start a person off as you're coaching?
Sure. So I do like to break things down in frameworks and in concepts. And so the way that I teach my clients is I want to make sure that the process I teach them respects who they are and the way that they think. And most people will fall on either side of the spectrum, which is either very chaotic or very orderly. And there are problems with both. The very chaotic people will often lack inspiration halfway through. It's happened to me in the past. But on the other end, people that are very orderly will spend a lot of time creating an outline, very detailed. And then what they'll do is, will either not really use it or use it, but feel like it's stifling their creativity. So they can't really, because I think the beauty about writing is it's serendipitous, because if I sit down tomorrow morning and I work on my book, something's going to come out of it. But if I do it tonight, I don't know that what came out of it was the same thing as I would have done tomorrow morning. So you need to find that fine line between structure and creativity. And so what I like to do personally is I create the kind of outline, and I work with specific frameworks that I've developed, specific techniques. So I know, for example, when I want to connect the dots or tell a story or describe things. And so I create the type of outline that allows me to have enough meat on the bone that I can put my teeth on if I need it. And I it's not just that I need it, but I also need to see how it's going to unfold. So I have a certain outcome that I want to reach, and then I get there, but it's not detailed enough that I can just fill in the blank, because that sucks away the joy of writing, in my opinion. And I know that it does that for most people. And so what I encourage people to do is really find, the amount of details that you need to put in an outline, in a structure, and find your own rhythm. And, but always make sure that you go back and you understand, what's going on. And if you do that, you will see the thing, progress and make sense. And see, the thing about discipline is that, well, first of all, it's very hard to write while you're staring at a blank page. So you don't ever want to be staring at a blank page. So you need structure to do that. But the other thing is, to get in a state of flow, you need to have a positive feedback loop. So you have to have something written and something that's, decent or at least good. And so that you're kept motivated. It's really about motivation in the end. Your discipline will come out of the motivation that you have, getting that sense that you're getting somewhere. You can have a daily goal, either a word count, or, if you decide I have an hour to spend on writing, I'll try to get as much done as I can. I know, for example, I can write about 1,000 words an hour, depending on like how much research or thinking I'm doing. Obviously, if it's just writing and goes really fast, I can do more, but you got to know yourself as well. So I know, for example, like I can write about 1,000 words an hour. So knowing yourself, staying motivated, having the right process for the structure and the creativity, I think these are the 3 keys.
Right. So you provide them a skeleton key.
Yeah. Well, the method for creating their skeleton. Yes.
Mm-hmm. And I know with meditation, people start with 10 minutes, because you don't want to be too hard on yourself and become discouraged, because people in the beginning, you're not going to be able to sit down maybe for an hour unless you're just, free flowing and just blah. I've done that before, where you don't have any structure, but you're like, these are all the things I know I want to talk about, and I want to put it all down there. Like, don't forget this. I want to make sure I got that.
I think it's really case by case. I don't do any of this stuff. I don't know anyone who does, but if it works for people,
I'm messy, man. I'm messy. That's why I need Jeffrey. And he has to tighten it back up.
You do what works, right? Personally, I just blast some heavy metal and start typing frantically. But that's just me.
So Jeffrey, you don't do the A to Z coaching. You either do the editing, or you either take the whole baby or you do the editing, right? You don't really do the
correct
the middle.
But I tell people, see, he's a lot more structured and detailed, which is great. I just come at him and be like, hey, how bad do you want it? How bad do you want to do this? Do you want it or not? Because I can talk about my personal experience. What's your motivation? What fuels you to write your book? I wrote my first book, The 3 Pillars of Strength, out of anger, because I hated my job in corporate America. I was ready to get out. I was tired of it. I didn't like my boss, and I was ready to go. I wrote that book on my iPhone. It took me a year and a half. I would lay in bed on Saturday night at 2 a.m. writing on my iPhone. Took me a year and a half. That's how bad I wanted it. I remember I did a seminar a couple of years ago, and I told people I had never seen Game of Thrones, and they just cracked up. And I'm like, hey, I was busy. This is what I wanted to do. And so while you watching TV, I'm over here hustling. That's what I'm doing. So how bad do you want it? Do you want it? Do you really want it? Or you rather just sit around and talk about what you want? If you really want it, you're going to do it. It's just that simple. If you really want to do something, you're going to do it. If you only sit there and write for an hour a day, half an hour, do something every single day, because eventually you're going to look and be like, wow, I got something done here. This is pretty good. So I just ask them, how bad do you want it? I'm not going to babysit you. I'm not going to handhold you. I'm not going to say you can do it. How bad do you want it? What is your motivation? My motivation was I was sick of corporate America. I wanted a way out. Now, I was listening to an audiobook last night, and because I'm working on my 12th book right now, and I've been kind of starting it and stopping, starting, stopping. And the audiobook, they said what you want to do going forward is create assets to survive in the new world that's coming up. You need to have as many assets as you can, and you want to be able to sell whatever you have so you can keep money coming in. I'm like, oh, there's my new motivation to finish this book. So what motivates you? Now, as far as structure, what I do is I do create somewhat of an outline and points of what I want to go in the book. So if you're going to write a nonfiction book, you can write out, okay, what I want to talk about in this book. You can just put like little notes of what you want to write about. And you can say, like, you have even just chapter titles. Put the title, and then you can start filling it in. Now, like I said, my first book took me a year and a half, and I don't regret it. I'm glad I did it. But if it's going to take you time, that's okay, as long as you do something. And another thing I tell people, do not look back on your life and see regret. Please don't look back in 20 years and be like, you know what? I didn't even try to finish it. I didn't even do it. I talked about I was going to do it. I'm going to do it. This is why you see so many older people who are angry and bitter, because they look back on their lives and they see that they did not do what they set out to do. So I ask you, how bad do you want it? That's it.
That reminds me, two things I was gonna say. You sound like a drill sergeant. You sound a little. You like to write a boot, have a boot camp where you lock them in their room, and
No.
wake up, get up here.
No, what happened to me, honestly, because I'm a very literal person. When I was younger, like I'm talking preteen and teenage years, I would hear people say, oh, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that, and I'd be like, oh, cool, I can't wait to see that. And it's like, man, this fool ain't did nothing. And then when I was a personal trainer, I'm gonna work out, I'm gonna lose 20 pounds, I'm gonna lose 30 pounds. You see him 6 months later, it's like, dog, what are you talking about? How bad do you want it? So I hear people who talk about what they want to do, but they don't follow up with the action. So I'm not going to, sugarcoat it. I'm not going to, placate you or whatever. I'm like, okay, do you want to do it or not? Don't play games with your own mind. I'm a believer in actions. I want to see action. Just do something every day. Even if it's just 5-10 minutes a day, it adds up. So that's why I say it the way I do, because I can't motivate you to write a book. I can't, because that's something you have to do on your own. So that's, just the way I look at it. If you really want to do something, there's nothing in the world that'll stop you. And we all know that to be true. If you really want to do something, you will stop everything to get that done. Everything. So how bad do you want it? It's just that simple.
I like this quote from Earl Nightingale. It says, and I use this in my vision board class too. Most people tiptoe their way through life, hoping to make it safely to the grave. Just constantly playing it safe, and not wanting to break any eggs. And gee whiz, what's it all for? Let's break some eggs and make some stuff happen. So we got through how to get started and what would happen if we get stuck. One thing, it's kind of like who should write a book. Some people, though, they say they have a story, and I'm not sure if they have a story or not. I get kind of skeptical, because sometimes I look and I'm like, well, what did you do? What did you do? What is it that you're trying to express? So, and then, then there's people who are in business, and you're supposed to be like a subject matter expert. Those are people I know, like, definitely each one of you should have a book. If you're a subject matter expert, like you guys are writers, and you've been a fitness instructor, you've done financial services. And so if you're going to go give speeches or, go out and do trainings, it seemed like you would have a product with you as well. Something that represents and shows that you are the subject matter expert. So who should write a book?
That's a great question. I think it partly goes back to what we're talking about, the question of like ghostwriting versus writing. And before I went on that long rant, I was talking about how important it is to have this skill and how writing relates to thinking. And I think if you learn how to write and to think and to communicate clearly, then you have the capacity to write a book. And if you have expertise, then it only makes sense that you would put it into a book. And, you know, I hear a lot of people say, yeah, I think I have a book in me and, I don't know if my ideas are worth it. Or I hear people say, I've been told I should write a book. And the last one is, you know, and I don't know what you think of that, Jeffrey, but I think it annoys a lot of writers because it's like, well, okay, you've been told to write a book. Okay, fine. Do you want it though? It's like people see this as sort of like comforts, like, oh, my aunt told me I should write a book because some interesting things happened to me. That's not what makes it so you should write a book. What makes it so you should write a book is you have the ideas. And honestly, I think anyone can write a book, because at the end of the day, it's not so much the what, it's the how. I can take a bank statement and make it sound sexy if I try. So like any information, and you can go down the path of fiction as well. And there are a lot of people who have what would be objectively considered as uninteresting, boring lives, who make things interesting. They write great stories. And you can take information and make it compelling. And so if you have ideas and you believe in those ideas and you have a sense that these are important, and yes, you should write a book. And if you have no audience, if no one knows you, then yeah, you can still write the book. What you need to do though is to learn the fundamentals, to make them interesting, learn the architecture of writing, learn the laws of writing. How do you communicate compellingly and make these ideas interesting? Because I think it was Carl Jung who said, people don't have ideas, ideas have people. And so ideas have been around, you take one idea, it's been around for a long time, and maybe I thought it on my own. It's like fire. People discovered fire independently at different times because eventually it was a necessity. So it's the same thing with ideas. People come up with ideas at different times independently because they are necessity. How do you express that idea though? That's what matters. And I can take an idea, write it in a certain way for a certain audience. Jeffrey can take that idea, write it differently for a different audience, and we both have an impact on each audience. And if there's an idea that was written in 1954, we're not talking about it today and we need that idea, then heck yes, bring back that idea. Maybe we need it right now. Maybe you need a 2020 book on that idea, differently. And so that's why I'm so big on finding, where you fit in the conversation. What's your contribution? What's your angle? And I think about writing as, really a conversation. People are dining together, having a convo, and then you pop in and you listen to what they said, and then you contribute something based on your own ideas, based on your expertise.
And the magic word you used was impact. Does your story have an impact? Is there a lesson? Is there an idea behind it? Or is it just a random bunch of stories where, it was just a random string of good luck or a random string of bad luck? Or even can you recognize the lesson in these interesting things? Because it's not just about just being interesting.
Yeah.
Can you recognize, the lesson? Or, because, and there it is, a thinker, a philosopher, because you're
it's wisdom.
Philosophy.
People are hungry for wisdom.
Yes.
There's a framework called the DKIW framework, the pyramid. It's basic data, information, or insight. No, information, knowledge, insight, wisdom. And what you want to have in a book, if you want it to be universal, if you want to have the greatest impact is wisdom, because wisdom is universal. You know, why are these quotes so impactful today? You know, what's even a quote? A quote is just a statement that makes sense when taken out of its context. And when you can write like that, damn, you can have an impact. You know, you take that statement, you know, these quotes from Aristotle, from like ancient Greece, you know, they're so impactful. It's just one sentence, it's a one-liner. And so what people are hungry for is wisdom. And so that's how you have the greatest impact. And so that's absolutely right. You know, data, you know, who cares about data? Data isn't loud. It doesn't resound.
I'm thinking, it made me think of the movie Waterworld. Like it was almost like you watch it and you're like, what was the point of what I just watched?
Exactly.
You know, how important is the beginning, middle, and end? And it was just this story. They were just floating. Just floating. And you know, you cannot have a bunch of pages just floating.
Yeah. It's unity and purpose. What's the purpose? And the purpose is just like the end goal. You can't go beyond that.
So I know in script writing, you had to get something going in the first 10 pages. There had to be some drama because the person has to have a reason to keep going. Because I've watched movies and I've picked up books where you get through the first 5-10 pages and it's like, what is the, and you put it down and maybe you miss something great. I've seen this with a lot of TV series and a lot of movies where it really was a good movie. It just took a long time to get started. So sometimes some books, they start maybe flashing back. And sometimes they start flashing forward. I don't know what you have to say about that. Where should it start? How do you get the writer motivated or the reader captivated?
You know, I like what you said about, you know, starting in the action. I think there has to be some sort of drama. You know, intellectually, it has to be thought-provoking. You know, it has to be important. There has to be some sort of conflict. You know, the book that I'm writing right now, which is on politics and personal development, I start the introduction. I say, we've been telling ourselves a lie. We've defined polarization, political polarization, as the greatest threat to harmony, but it's the symptom to something way deeper than that.
That sounds captivating, just that statement. Yeah. It's like, oh, what is, because you want to know what is the lie? What was the lie?
Exactly. So yeah, what do you think of that, Jeffrey? Where should people start to captivate the reader?
You got to catch them in the beginning, because we live in a world. I mean, look at what TikTok. You have videos that are 5 seconds. 5 seconds. Instagram, you have 60-second videos. People's attention spans have gotten so short. You got to catch them quick, and then you gotta reel them in the beginning. You have to get their attention, because personally, I like thick books. I like really thick books that you can really get into the characters, both fiction and nonfiction. But unfortunately, a lot of people have that short attention span. So you, as the writer, this is also a business too. If you're looking at it from a business perspective, you have to figure out, okay, my customers, my clients, what do they like? Oh, they have a short attention span. I got to catch them quick. Okay, so let me reel them in really quick. Then I club them over the head, and now I got them, and then they just stick with me. So you have to be understanding that if you're writing, you know, to, you know, sell books, you're going to have to look at your target audience and understand what they want. I mean, we all can write books just based on what we want, but unfortunately, you have to think about your target market too. And let me say this also, as far as that's concerned, there are 7 billion people on this planet. 7 billion. Surely you can find a couple 100 million who like what you do. Surely. The key though is to,
from a certain amount. Yeah, like 100,000 100,000 people. I just need a
Right.
dollar from 100,000 people.
Exactly. But it's the truth. And to see, that's just another way to look at it. People say, oh, no one likes my book. Well, did you reach all 7 billion people on this planet? If not, you got to keep getting it out there, because then surely you're going to meet the people, you're going to encounter the people who like what you do. So you cannot get discouraged. Yes, you have to get them, get their attention in the beginning, but at the same time, you got to get out and find those people. No one knows who you are. No one knows you. You got to get in their face. They're busy with TikTok. They're busy with Instagram. They're busy with Facebook. They're busy with politics. They're busy with trying to find out the coolest mask they can wear. They're mad at people for not wearing masks. People are busy. They don't have time to find you. You got to find them. People have minds going in a million different places. If you can see my screen on my laptop, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. I have 14 tabs. Multitasking is what people are doing. So people are all over the place. So you gotta get in their face quick, get their attention quick, then it's off to the races. So until you do that, until you understand how this business really operates, then you're gonna remain frustrated and not understand what you need to do to become successful as a writer and in business.
You know, I really like the idea that, you know, when you're never competing for people's book budget, you're competing for people's budget in general. You know, what are the alternatives? Might they go to the movie? Might they, you know, watch TV instead? But also, you know, you're competing for their attention, and, you know, you have to get out of the mindset that you're competing against other books. That's just not true. I really like the idea that you have to make your writing, and it's the same principle in advertising. You know, my dad is the worst, you know, he's as a consumer, it's really hard to get, but like he will say like, oh, I really like this ad, like it spoke to me. And, you know, I like this idea that you have to make it so interesting that people would be crazy not to pay attention. And that's what your writing has to be. And that's what I always strive for when I'm writing. Make it so intriguing, so fascinating that people would be foolish not to pay attention, because it's also so important and it's so needed that, you know, it would be a mistake not to pay attention. And then they'll ditch Game of Thrones and, you know, the politics and all that stuff to read this because they see it as a necessity.
I'm going to tell you this. I'm going to go ahead and step on some toes and go ahead and offend some people right off the bat.
Oh, Lord, here we go.
Because I like Tyler Perry plays because they sing and they're funny. That being said, when I watched The Family That Prays, what disturbed me was the one character, she was very angry with her mom about race. I guess it was something, her mom was doing something. Her mom's best friend was white and she was very angry. And you don't ever know why she's angry. And then later on, she has an affair with the same, you know, her mom's best friend's son. And you go from her being angry about race, but then also having a child with someone of a different race. And then you're like, well, I don't understand what happened. And you never find out the gap between why was she so angry when she was young to why she changed her mind when she was older and never really understood. Irritates me because I was like, there was no character development. The character was flat. Another movie that it was like kind of similar was Why Did I Get Married? And it took to me watching part 2 of Why Did I Get Married to understand the dynamic of the group and to understand the dynamic of the couple that was having so much conflict. It took me to watch the second movie to even like the people or understand who they really were. And how do you do this? How do you do this? How quickly can you do it? You know, before you're just like writing 5 pages of this is who the person is and this is what they did and this is what they think. Like, how do you blossom that, the character?
I just want to say something real quick. You're very generous to have given them a second chance after not liking the first one.
Well, it wasn't that I didn't like it. It was just there was a dead spot to me, and
Right.
I'm critical, so I don't mind watching the next.
Well,
Be like, I still don't like it. So
well, for the people at home, usually you don't get a second chance if you mess up the first one.
I'm a
So
funny
you
person.
gotta get it right the first time. But I'll let Jeffrey answer.
Well, I'm not really a big fiction writer, I'm more of nonfiction, so that really isn't my area of expertise. But I think it comes back to knowing your audience and trying to understand what they like. But at the same time, I do want to say this though. Um, a lot of people don't like Tyler Perry movies. Some do. Can you imagine if he listened to the people who said they don't like his movies, he should stop, or he should quit? What he did was he found the people who do like them, and now he's a billionaire.
Oh
So
yeah,
evidently, it's a whole lot of people who like his movies and his plays and everything. So
yeah.
you cannot let someone else dictate what you should or should not do with your life. But as far as character development, I think that you have to just look at your target audience and try to see what they like and what their mindset is and how you can draw them in so they can feel like they're part of the movie or the book. Now, I will say that I've read some books.
Jeffrey, because it's a movie, so you're actually watching people act things out.
Yeah.
That should be like a plus. Like that should have been
Oh
like
yeah.
extra. And I still was confused. I was so confused. Like, well, what? Why is she angry?
Well, yeah, and again, you have to, put that in there. I'm gonna say, I've seen some movies and I read some books where I got so into it that when it was over, I was sad. I'm like, I like these people. I feel like I can hang out with them, you know. And I'm a big Avengers fan. I love the Avengers movies, and I think I like them because I really like the characters. I feel like I'm not a superhero, but I would like to just hang out with them because they just cool. So I think as a writer, you want to make sure that your readers can really feel the characters and they like either they have some type of strong feelings for the character, either strong like, even strong dislike. People love the bad guy, they love the villain, they can't get enough of them. So you got to find a way to get into that emotion of that reader. You got to tap into that psyche, and once you can get inside their mind and they can even think about the book or the movie after it's over, then you got them. But I that's not my area of expertise, but I do think that's something that you need to do, because I'm looking at it just from on the other side, from a person who enjoys watching movies and reading books. I want to be able to feel that character, and that's up to you to pull that out to make that character come alive. And I don't know how you do it because I'm a nonfiction guy, but you have to be able to do that.
Yeah. So, I was just gonna add one quick thing.
Okay.
So the thing is, you can kind of think about it. If you are dating someone, or if you have a relationship with someone, you want to know what they're about, and you want to relate to those people, so you need to know things about them. But it's like there's this classic rule of show don't tell. If you don't want somebody, let's say you're on a date, you don't want somebody to tell you, yeah, I'm sincere. You need to show it. And it takes time. If you go on one date with somebody, you can't know if they're sincere or not. You can't know if they have integrity, because to show that they have integrity, they have to say they're going to do something, and then they have to do it. So that takes time. And so the same thing goes for writing, where you have to give it time and show what people do. And it's like movie, because you can't just say he was a sincere man, he had integrity. It's like, no one's going to believe that. They're going to put the book away and stop reading it. But you have to have them do things that are going to show, like, people need to think, okay, he did this, 2 + 2 = 4. Okay, he is a man of character and of integrity. I know that because people who do this are like that.
I have a key thing to say about this. I know I used to like the cabin in the woods type movie, and it's like 5 friends and they take their girlfriends with them, and it's like one guy's always this really obnoxious jerk, and I'm like, why are they hanging out with him? Who would hang out with this guy? He's such a jerk. And then there's like the really nice guy, and it's like, oh man, why is he so annoyingly nice? Why is he always taking stuff? And then I realized, like, when you write, you have to understand too that that's a part of the character development. When you have the different character archetypes, that shows you who the other people are because of the interactions between those 5 people who most likely would never even hang out with each other. But it exposes the character. But I mean, how far do you go with your character archetypes? Like, do you make sure that you have, how many do you make sure that you have at least?
You know, it's an interesting question. I think archetypes, whether we realize it or not, and I think in fiction as in nonfiction, because
Yeah.
like I always say, the fundamentals are the fundamentals, and everything at the end of the day is a story. Your nonfiction books are still, you know, narrative. The way that information is presented is narrative. And the novel I wrote, I didn't know much about archetypes when I wrote it, and the archetypes permeated the book. And it's like you have kind of like the Joker, and you have like the tyrannical father, and you have like the benevolent mother, and you have, you know, you have all of these archetypes. And I literally did not know about archetypes back then. I didn't know like how strong and prevalent they were in literature, but it's the way that our society works. There's a reason why we have these archetypes. And, you know, way back, Carl Jung talked about the collective unconscious, and these are part of the collective unconscious. We have these roles in society, and so maybe I'm more of a certain archetype, and Jeffrey is another archetype, but they exist, and whether we realize it or not. And I think, you know, to be a great writer, you know, we have to be intentional about these things. But even if we aren't, we still kind of like pick up on these things, because what is true in writing is true in real life, and what is true in real life is true in writing. And, you know, I think we need to be intentional, and we need to think about, okay, how does that move the needle? How does that move the story? And one cool thing you can do, something that I really like, is because it's one thing to know the rules and the patterns that will make your story effective, but it's also cool to subvert them. It's also cool to break those rules. Like, you know, there's a specific narrative structure, especially in Hollywood movies, but it's cool to use that structure, but then to subvert it, because then you do a pattern interruption and people are surprised. You're still working within the confines of that structure, but, you know, you're doing something unique, and that's what makes it interesting for the readers. So, you know, sometimes it's reversing like one of the archetypes, but yes, in the end, it does boil down to like being intentional about those, making sure that they actually move the needle.
I would even say, even in nonfiction, what it takes is a more analysis of the people involved. Because if I'm talking about my mom, I can't just glaze over. If I'm talking about my brother or somebody at work, I have to really, like, I'm annoyed by this person at work, or I always talk to this person at work. I have to dig a little deeper in my observation of the person to bring that to light, because the archetypes are there, even in nonfiction.
Yes, absolutely.
Unless you're writing about business, I don't know. Like, I guess that's what you're talking about though, Jeffrey, not necessarily just nonfiction, but something structured like fitness or business or something like that, right?
I mean, even in self-help and business books, there's always some sort of narrative story. There's this book right here on my bookshelf, Atomic Habits. You know, open the book on page 1, you know, and it's a book about productivity and habits, and you know, it's backed by science. It starts: on the final day of my sophomore year of high school, I was hit in the face with a baseball bat. That's the first sentence in the book. So there always is a story somewhere, even in books like this.
True. And even in an instructional book, it's still guy A does this and guy B does that. And then one of them is right and one of them is wrong, and they're completely the opposite of each other.
Yeah, a
Yeah.
lot of times you want to give examples. Sometimes you can even give real life examples so the reader can relate. You can even use personal experiences. I've done that in a lot of my books. You know, like in one book, I talked about my experiences with fasting, and I gave a detail of each day so people could kind of understand and you know, see what it's like if they ever do it. So yeah, whatever type of book it is, I think you want to find a way that the reader can relate to it, so that keeps them engaged. And personally, I like to think with some books, it's like I can see myself in this book. If I can see myself in this book, then that means I'm there. And as a writer, as an author, that's one of the best things you can do, because they feel like they're connected, like they almost know you, but you don't know them. So I think that's very important to at least try to learn how to do. And I think that's very important as far as being a successful, you know, writer and author as well.
There's
I'm
oh, I
sorry.
was just gonna add, there's this book I read recently called Energy Leadership, and it's a business book, but it's a story. And I think the story is not real. He invented a firm, but like he's a coach and he's the guy who founded IPEC Coaching. And so anyway, he goes to like a consulting firm and he turns it around, like helping the CEO. And it's a story, it's a narrative. And so, you know, all that to say that even, you know, a business book can be turned into a story.
Right. That's like one of those championship football games, and they bring it through at the end.
Exactly.
What I was gonna ask, since you're both gonna be editing and coaching, where do you draw the line when you're trying to pump life into something and maybe there wasn't enough information or enough description, or maybe where is too far, you know, like when it comes to trying to add to someone's writing?
What I'll do is I'll let them know, hey, you should elaborate on this here, and I'll tell them why. You know, I'll explain why, because they really can draw in the reader. They may have you may have unanswered questions and they want to know exactly what's going on, and sometimes that detail is a key part of the book. Because I look at it not only from an editor perspective, I look at it from because I love to read. I've been reading on my own, both fiction and nonfiction, since I was in high school. I love to read. I just can't read as much anymore because I'm writing all the time. So I look at it from the reader's perspective. If I was reading this book, what would I like? So I'll give the comments and suggestions, but if they don't like it, I take a step back, because this is still their project. I'm not going to change your project. At the end of the day, I want you to be happy with what you wrote. This isn't my book. If I really wanted to write a book, I could go do it myself, you know, but I want to make sure that you get your point across the way you want it to. But I will definitely let you know that you should add some information to this book. But if you don't want to, I'm not going to keep harping on it. No, I won't do that though. I'll
Yeah.
just say, hey, I think you should add this here and explain why. But if you don't want to, it's okay with me. I'm fine. This is your project. As long as you're happy and you get the point across that you want to get across in the way you want to get it conveyed, then I'm fine.
You know, we've approached this in the past, especially working on compilations when you're working with other people and the structure is supposed to be the same on each page. And we're doing affirmations and stuff like, oh, you can only have 90 words. And people get so pissed because you did 120 words or you did 200 words and you don't want somebody to strike this part out because it's important, but now you're breaking the format. And
Well, that's part of being a writer. You have constraints, and
yeah.
You have to put every word, every sentence on trial for its life. That's just how it is. It's the nature
And
of
you
the
gotta let
beast.
them know, hey, this is, you knew this going in. We're gonna do it this way. So you can tailor the book to the way we want it. If you want to have 120 words, then write your own. See,
Yeah.
I'm
And
too blunt.
if
I'm
they
too
can't
blunt.
change it, then it would be the editor. And I think it's way better if the person does it themselves, because you
Exactly.
have choice, you have power over that change. Because, but obviously it hurts. We never want to kill our darlings, as King puts it.
Mhm.
But you got to do it. It's yeah, you got to put, and even without constraints, you want to put every word and every sentence on trial for their life.
I
Hey,
like those
you.
put that on trial for their life. Yeah.
Hey, I'm glad you brought up Stephen King. I love Stephen King books. When I was in my Stephen King phase, I would get his biggest, thickest books, like Duma Key. That book is like 800 pages, and I got the hardcover. That's how much of a fan of his I was. The reason I like his books so much is because he gets so much detail into those books, into those characters. You can close your eyes and you can actually see that character. So I think it's a good idea for people who want to write to read other people's books, to become a reader yourself, because then you can get some ideas on some different literary styles and maybe pick up on some things. Um, Even in my because I write a lot of nonfiction, I told you, I noticed that a couple of the writers, what they'll do is they'll, like I said before, they'll talk about themselves, some instances in their past, and they tie that into the book to make it more relatable to the reader. And I'm like, that's a good idea. So I do that a lot more with my books. But you want to just look at other people, just read other people's books and just get an idea of what's out there and what's selling. Again, you're writing your book, but do you want to just sell 2 copies, or do you want to sell 2 million copies? If you want to sell 2 million copies, this is a business, and you need to start, thinking outside the box and kind of maybe checking some things out and see what's out there, and maybe do what you got to do.
Now you brought up a good point. Now Stephen King can pull off 800 pages. Some people get to writing and there's no end. And then some people get to writing and it's a really short cliff. So what is too short? What is too long?
Again, it comes back to there's 7 billion people on this planet. Not everyone likes 800-page books. I know that for a fact. And people are like, oh, I can't read all that. But they'll read a 50, 60 page book, 100 pages. Get in where you fit in. Find your market and market to them. 7 billion people on this planet. That means there will be at least 500 million people who don't like the way you write. Get over it. Find the other 500 million who do like it. So you have to find what's going to work for you and get to that market. But again, there's no right or wrong. Do what you like to do.
I hear
Like
you.
writing big books, write big books. But if you don't, then do smaller. So it's a catch-22. Maybe when you start out the smaller books. Maybe do a series on characters. And then, as you can gradually get people sucked in, then you can do maybe a little bigger if you want. Keep them short. I don't think there's a right or wrong answer there. I really don't.
I've seen some books where we've gone to events and people, they're sharing their book. Maybe it's 80 pages. Maybe the typeset is 14. And it was, I was standing there looking, and it was like it was the most flat, and I was just like, oh wow. like did anyone help with this? I guess that's just the basic. I guess all you could say about that is get some help, because I don't know if some people maybe they're self-publishing and they're not getting help, or I'm not sure.
Well,
Yeah.
that, like I said, I'm sorry, Landry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, getting help is critical. And you know, there are different kinds of helps you can get. You can, you know, you can work with a writing coach, you can work with an editor, you can, you know, you can get it written for you by a ghostwriter. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter. You know, you can even have a friend read over it. And, you know, there are some friends that will do it for free, and you can find someone who's interested enough in your stuff
Love
that they
writing.
will read it for free. And it's like, you know, if you can't even get some feedback, then there's a problem somewhere. If you don't want to make the effort to have someone look over and, you know, tell you what's working well, what's not working well, then at this point it's almost kind of natural selection. But you know, there are all kinds of help you can get, and you definitely need help, especially if you haven't done it before. You know, if you're a seasoned writer like Jeffrey, you know, and you know, people like Jeffrey and I, we still get help. We still get a second pair of eyes. Even the best writers like Stephen King, they have an editor, they have a proofreader, they have people that they trust that give them feedback. So it's foolish to think that, you know, especially if you have never written a book before, you don't need that kind of help. You certainly do. And like I said, there are all kinds of help. So there is no reason not to get it. There is no excuse.
I know personally, my motto is I'm always learning, I'm always growing, I'm always evolving. I don't claim to know everything. And I welcome constructive criticism because that's how I grow as a person. So if you are the type that's going to get mad because someone says your format is wrong, or you're not, we can't understand what you're writing, then you know you won't grow and you won't become successful. At least listen to people. You know, you may not like what you hear, but it's going to help you. So it's very important to at least get that second opinion and be honest with yourself. Maybe you're not a good writer, but that does not mean you can't become a good writer.
Exactly. You may not be
You have
now.
to be willing to work hard and be open-minded and willing to learn and grow and evolve. And no one is an expert when you start out. There's very few people who are experts at anything. You know, you may have some child prodigies, you know, like Tiger Woods, or you know, some LeBron, people like that, but all in all, the average person has to work very, 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 very hard to become successful. And just because you have a passion for writing or anything, that does not mean that won't apply to you either. Because trust me, it's going to be a lot of work. There's a lot you don't know. Humble yourself and, you know, get a little help. Be willing to take that constructive criticism and use it to your advantage.
That's absolutely right. And I would just add one quick thing. You know, what you said, Jeffrey, is absolutely right. And it reminded me of the question you asked earlier, Erica, about who should write. And, you know, if you reverse the question is who should not write. And earlier I said, you know, everybody can write and everybody should write if they have ideas, if they're willing to put in the work. Now, if there's one type of person or like one person that should not write, if you're unwilling to get help, to get criticism, then you should not write. And the reason is when you're writing, you're putting out information that needs to be thought through and developed, and you have a responsibility to your readers to make it the best it can be. And if you're unwilling to learn, then you don't have the right to teach, because writing is teaching. And so if you're not willing to learn, then you can't teach. You don't have the right to teach other people if you're not willing to take that criticism. So in this case, you should not write.
So I see a magic component in here, and beyond what is just communication, the fact that people on a daily basis we're communicating, and you have to understand that you're opening up your world. Everybody doesn't understand your world. Everybody doesn't understand the way you think. Everybody doesn't understand the way that you communicate. So you have to be open to someone helping you, you know, unlock that, you know, that labyrinth of getting your thought across so that everybody understands it, or everybody who reads it, or who your target market is, who they actually understand what it is. You know, it's like me trying to tell a joke, and if, you know, my jokes don't always come out right. I might need someone to help me fine tune my joke because the punchline is off, you know, and how do I deliver the proper punchline? You know,
Right.
timing is everything,
Yeah.
right?
And
How
what
you
if
gonna get mad because someone didn't laugh at your joke? It wasn't funny. How you gonna get mad because your joke wasn't funny? I'm sorry. Don't be mad at me. Your joke wasn't funny. What do you need to do? You need to go back to the lab, in front of the mirror, get your presentation down, and practice. It's the same thing with writing or anything in
yeah?
book.
And what if you made a joke that's offensive and you didn't know it could be offensive? And what if that person is right? What if that joke is actually offensive? Then they're going to tell you and you're going to learn and you won't make that joke again, or you'll make that joke less offensive.
It's,
Or your
yeah,
career is
you
ruined.
learn.
little
Or
world,
your
in that little world, that little world.
yeah, because you being hard headed, now your career is ruined. And now you're back at your day job in the cubicle. Wondering what went wrong.
Well, don't take it down the slippery slope, but I think,
Don't send me back
yeah.
to
See,
No,
that
but
was a joke. And I made you guys laugh. You see, that's the presentation delivery. Now, pow, I brought it home.
yeah, well, I mean, I think problem is you were too right. It wasn't even a joke. That's reality.
Oh,
I have a weird sense of humor. That's all. But yeah, it was supposed to be a joke, but yeah, but no, it's true. It's still a joke.
in the throat, but it's funny.
Exactly.
It was too accurate. I couldn't tell it was a joke.
So let's get to where we're going to publish this book. Is it even necessary to go through old school, old house publishing anymore?
No.
Freedom. Yeah, it's true. Because I don't think a lot of people realize like that, what was it? The New York Times bestsellers list? Like that's actually like a paid type of thing. And I don't think people.
No, not really. I mean, you have to be, there's certain criteria to getting on the New York Times bestseller. And you can, if you're self-published, as far as I know, you can still get on that list. No?
No.
Okay, then I'm wrong.
When you go
But
through a publishing house,
I don't think so.
you know,
you're a
there-
publishing house, you have to purchase a certain amount of your own books too. You have to put up a certain amount of money, don't you?
oh yeah. Oh, so yeah, I think I remember. So what happens is it has to be different channels of distribution. And if you're self-published, you don't have access to some of these channels, and so it doesn't count toward those. Now, the thing is, you hear a lot of people say, well, okay, people put out a lot of self-published garbage. Well, the truth is, publishing houses also put out garbage for different reasons. Why do people self-publish garbage? It's because they haven't followed the process. They didn't get help. They didn't get criticism. They didn't edit properly. Why do publishing houses put out garbage? It's because there are celebrities that think they can write, or they have it written by somebody else, and it's just not very good. I've read, books by, political commentators or like other like famous people who, if you're a traditional publisher, it's going to make money. But these books are crap. And so why are they published? Well, because there is an audience for it. But at the end of the day, it's like you have bad books on both sides. So I think what it really boils down is it doesn't matter how you publish it, it's how you write it and the process you follow in creating a quality product.
See, in that case, it's all about name. Like
Oceans,
just like the name.
13, 14, 15, 16. I was kidding.
Like you said, you didn't like the Tyler Perry movie, but some people went to see it because it was Tyler Perry. Now, if I made a movie like that as my first movie, I'd probably never make another movie again because no one would give me a chance.
Who the hell is this guy Jeffrey, and why did he make this movie?
This old crappy movie, exactly. But since and that's another thing you got to think about. This is a business. At the end of the day, they don't care if that book is good. Did that book make money? Yes or no? If it made money, you can make another one then because it's your name that did it.
Yes, it's true.
Sometimes it comes down to the name.
Like they say, fool me twice.
I mean, many publishing houses care that the books are good, especially independent publishing houses. Now, the thing is, it's a business, so there's a market, and people aren't stupid. People want good stuff, and it's like following that that logic. The market requires that the books are good. Now, obviously, there's also the popularity contest aspect to it, which creates bad books, and you know, that's a problem in my opinion. But I would say most of the time the market takes care of it, in terms of like, if Penguin started publishing, you know, if Penguin laid off everybody and started like putting out like really bad books, then people would stop buying them. So why is it that Penguin is so successful as a publishing house? Because they put out quality products, and they've been doing that consistently for a long period of time. So, you know, it's what the market wants, and, you know,
And I
people
think
know what a good book is.
You brought up some really good. Oh, go ahead, First Lady.
I think that's what we were gonna wrap up at after you say what you're gonna say is now you're self-published. Now you got to go out there and self-market. And what is it that you wanted to say, Jeffrey?
He brought up a good point. See, I see both sides. I see the buzz, and if you're popular, then it'll sell, and they'll just keep putting it out. But at the same time, that doesn't work for everybody. And then again, one day you can be hot, the next day you're not. We can see that with celebrities all the time. You're on the red carpet this year, the next year no one knows who you are. But as far as being good products and services, in a true economy, a true market, the good product always will excel, and the bad product will go out of business because people just won't buy it. So for you, you want to make sure that your product and your quality is top notch. That is rule number one. Make sure your quality is top notch, because once you do that, then it'll be easier and easier to gain more followers, to get more attention, to sell more books, and then you'll have a track record. So the next book comes out, like, oh, I remember this guy. You know, oh, I remember First Lady because her first book I read was really good. Then her third book was good. Her fourth book was good. Oh, she got another one coming out. I'm gonna get it sight unseen because I know how good it is. Then again, if it's not good, they'll be like, oh, she got another book out. Good luck, because I'm not getting it. So you want to make sure that your quality is top notch, because that's what's going to keep you in the business. That goes for writing books. That goes for selling shoes. That goes for restaurants, any type of business. And so people have to remember, if you're a writer, if you're an author, this is a business. If people are going to spend their money on your product, you got to make sure it's top notch, because people don't have money to throw around, especially these days. It's got to be worth their while. So you got to make sure you have everything that's to the best quality and standards available for you. That's going to help you both short term and long term for your business, because this is a business, period.
And where would you wrap up on marketing? How do you make sure people find your books?
Oh, there are many ways to do that. Many ways. As far as marketing, create a blog, create a YouTube channel, create a Facebook, a social media page for your books, buy ads for your books on different places, do word of mouth, have people buy your book, or have friends, buy your book, and then have them, pose with the book and say, this is a good book, you should check it out. There's many different things you can do. But long term, I honestly think more writing is the key to marketing your books. Writing more books, and then in the back of that book, you want to have a list of all your other books so they can see those, and just even writing blogs. And at the end of your blog post, say, hey, I got these books, check them out. They're available on, pick a site, check it out. But the key is to get yourself out there, because people aren't going to come to you. You have to go to them. And I'll say this one last thing. If you think about TV commercials, they don't run at one time. They run them over and over and over and over, so you can get it in your head that, oh, wait a minute, maybe I need to check this out. Same thing with you as an author in your books, because people it doesn't click the first time, doesn't click the second time. Sometimes they got to see you 40, 50 times before it registers that, hey, maybe I need to check this out. So whatever you do as far as marketing, you got to be consistent. because it's not going to happen overnight. But you got to be patient. You got to stay focused and just keep marketing. Whatever way you want to do it, you got to be consistent and keep putting out that information so people can see who you are.
And I think that's why collaboration is key too, because you helped me with my book. So I put you in the back of my book, and, you know, I listed my other books and then listed some of your stuff too, didn't we? And then
I told you about, then I think I suggested that to you. I don't remember. I thought we did, but yeah, collaborations is key too. That's a huge way, because now you cross market. You know, see, like we're on this with Léandre. You know, who does he know?
Right.
You know, now we're gonna, whoever he knows, and now they're gonna know us, and people who know me are gonna know him now. You know, he's very articulate. He knows what he's talking about clearly, so they may be like, hey, I need to check this guy out. And then when we talk like this, it gives us all just a little bit more, is credibility the right word? But, you know, it shows that we know what we're talking about,
Right.
and we're serious about what we're doing.
I think a big aspect of it is goodwill. If you give, then people will take interest. You know, if there's, if you keep everything you have, and people have to pay for that, then it's like it doesn't show any goodwill. So by putting yourself out there and by, giving people value before they actually engage in a commercial transaction with you, that's really key. Whether that be giving a couple free chapters, whether it be, the blogs do that. Going to, attending panels like this, sharing your expertise, sharing what you know about, doing that for free without asking for anything in return, then people will take interest. And, that's the best kind of marketing, putting yourself out there, giving, and then you plant those seeds, and then eventually, and by detaching yourself from the outcome, then you can harvest, what comes out of it.
Most definitely. That's the
Yeah,
law
I
of
agree.
reciprocity, right?
Yeah.
50 universal laws. There's more to it than the law of attraction. You can't just attract. You actually have to give and reciprocate and actually do the work. So
No, he's right. Because if people don't know you, how are they going to know you?
right.
I can sit up here and say, hey, buy my book. They're like, well, I don't know who you are. Why should I buy your book? But if they can see you on social media doing things like this, talking about certain things, if they go on your YouTube, they can see YouTube and you're putting out quality information, that'll get them more intrigued about you and want to know a little more. But again, it comes back down to being consistent. Anybody can be a one-hit wonder and say something profound in one, 20-second clip. But what, can you do it again a couple hundred more times?
Mm-hmm.
That's how long it may take before someone actually decides they want to, buy your products or services. So people are checking you out, but what are you going to do with it?
And that's why I encourage these type of conversations too, because people want to do business with people they know. Well, let's have a conversation. They get to know you, and now maybe they would like your services.
Yeah. That's the funny thing about social media. You don't know, the people that don't engage with you, they're still out there. They're still seeing you. They're just not engaging. You don't know. It's like, there's this one guy who I talked to recently. He's a friend that I met in university, and he tells me at one point, he said, oh, I admire how consistent you've been on Facebook, posting, providing value. The guy never clicked like on anything, never commented. I never would have thought he actually saw my stuff. I didn't even know it came up in his feed, but he did. So you don't know who's watching, because not everybody's leaving a little like or a little comment. So you don't know. And then it's like, at one point, this person hit me up and she said, hey, I've been seeing your content for like a month. You got me. Like, I give up. Like, tell me what you're offering.
Wow.
I'm laughing. I'm laughing so hard inside because I call it the 1%ers. For a lot of my posts, I get like 1% of my friends who like or comment. I get like the same 5 people. And I got like 800 friends. But then I'll see them in person, like, oh man, I love what you do. Well, I would never know.
Exactly.
And
I have like a 3,000 friends. The most likes I've ever got was like 150, like 100 comments.
right.
And that's abnormal. Normally it's like 25 if the post is good. If the post is so, it's like 13 or 7.
Exactly. It's like I'm just wasting
one
my time.
comment,
But I will
just
say
like
one thing. So I will say one thing on a positive note. I'll post and I'll just post. 2 weeks ago, I had someone I hadn't talked to, someone I worked with years ago. I'm not talking like 20 years ago. We used to work together in the financial services industry. He was like, hey man, I've been seeing what you're doing. My daughter's a school teacher and I want her to buy 27 of your books. Really? Hadn't talked to him in ages. But he was like, I've been watching you. I want to buy books for her students. Actually, it's 34 books.
wow, you
He
never
bought
know.
17 of 2 books. So I'm saying that to everyone out there listening, just because they're not, interacting with you, do not stop. Do not give up, because you never know who's watching. And that is gold. And I'm just telling you a true story that just happened to me 2 weeks ago. And I hadn't talked to him in ages, but he called me, but he was like, I've been watching you. I've been enjoying your posts. And my daughter's a school teacher and I want her to, get some of your books. Which ones do you suggest she get? And he, spent a nice chunk of change getting books. So, keep doing what you're doing. Do not stop.
People aren't always voicing, there surely are many people whose lives you've changed. They're not going to tell you. It's just not their nature. They're not going to tell you. You don't know, but you did change their life. You did impact their lives positively. You just won't know. It still happen. And so, it's sometimes it's hard to remember that. But when you're thinking you're getting no results, you have to remember that people are watching and that the plants you are seeding today will be harvested tomorrow.
Yeah. I wrote one on my Facebook page before. I said, it's like I'm calling out to the void. It's like an empty void. It's like, and then the phone rings.
See, that's funny. I'll see your post and I don't say nothing. I just keep up and scroll. But I see it. Isn't that bad? Isn't that terrible? It is terrible. But it's true. I'm just being honest. I see everything you post. But then if I like everything, I'll be a stalker. So I just won't say anything.
I'll tell you a funny story. This is even when people hate on your stuff, they might change their mind. I'll tell you a story. You might think that I'm mean, but I saw this ad on Instagram. This guy's just talking. He's a high performance coach and he's talking, and the ad really sucked. It sucked so bad that I thought, I'm going to comment, this ad really sucks. Not in a mean way. Just thought I'd let the guy know, because the ad was bad. Okay. And then
that was you. Well, thanks a lot.
Yeah, it was me. No, but seriously. And then I left that comment and somebody replied, yes, that's correct. Like, the ad sucks. Anyway, I think the guy changed the ads, and I kept seeing his ads, and I kept seeing them, and I kept seeing them. And, it got better. Eventually I joined his damn group and I watched his lives. And so I'm in his funnel, and who knows, like, maybe I'll get to know him and I'll see this is legit, that he has value. And, who knows, maybe I'll spend $5,000 on this guy. Who knows? And then I was the one who said, your ad sucks, dude.
Yeah.
So it's like, you never know.
I know a
change their
YouTuber
mind. We were talking about, not getting engagement, but the same goes when people hate on you. I hear a lot of people saying they post content, they offer value, and people say, oh, you don't know what you're talking about. And then they want their freebie because, they come back, or like they say, oh, you're not legit. And then they have a sales call with them, and then they end up buying whatever. It's like people change their mind, and it's like Jeffrey was saying earlier, you got to be there. You got to show up. You got to be visible. And then the message has to stick. Even if it's bad, you know, it sticks. And then, you know, you might change your mind like I did about this guy. You know, his ads look all right now.
I saw a self-destructive YouTuber who, I guess what he does, when he reads the comments, he actually titled one of his YouTube posts the B word and just went into a whole rant about how the lady should have just unsubscribed. And then he's like also talking about mindful meditation at that too. So it just blows me away. I'm like, there's nothing mindful about what you just did. And you labeled it the B word. And the same thing that you're telling her that she could have just unsubscribed, you could have just ignored the comment.
Yeah. It's like that YouTube video from 3 years ago. The guy was saying how to get 1 million views on YouTube in 2 days. And it's been 3 years. He has like 1 view. I'm not joking. I saw this on YouTube. So funny.
He consistently like berates his viewers and says, and I want these people to leave. And I'm like, I unsubscribed because I was like, man, I like your content, but I can't stand you tearing people down like this. And I just unsubscribed myself.
Some people like that though.
Yeah.
And then some people, actually, believe it or not, some people will say negative stuff to get a rise out of you.
Get the rise.
They get off on that. And what if that person says something crazy on his page in hopes that they get that attention? See, now they're famous. Because now people want to know who they are. People, you know, people are crazy. You know, what's their motive?
Some people are working on a persona.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
Being known for being that grumpy guy. Well, this is it. We're at the end. And Jeffrey, tell us who needs to contact you. Why?
Everybody.
And how?
Everybody. I don't care who you are. I don't speak French, but I will get a translator. I get Léandre. No, I'm kidding. Like I said, I'm all about trying to motivate and inspire people. I like to talk about financial, especially what's going on today in the market. I like to talk about health topics, positive thinking. If you have kids, you know, sign up for one of my camps. The Yes We Did Black History Camp and the Planting Seeds Entrepreneur Camp. Next year in January, I have a Winning Wealth Strategies Camp, because they don't talk about wealth strategies. All they talk about is invest in the stock market and maybe Forex and Bitcoin. But there's a whole lot more out there that you can do as far as, you know, gaining your financial independence. So you can reach me at
online now. Is that going to be online, or is that going to be at the Chamber of Commerce? Or
it's online. Everything's online. It's going to be via Zoom. It's a webinar. They're all webinars.
Got it.
So you can check those out. You can go to my my page, which is yeswedidllc.com, and you can also check out some of my books there as well.
Okay. And then Léandre, who should contact you? Why should they contact you? How should they contact you?
Yeah, so anyone who's interested in growing as writers, anyone who wants tips and strategies. So I post a lot of content on my Facebook profile, on my Facebook pages as well. So you can friend me on Facebook. It's Léandre Larouche. I also have a Facebook page, and there's the Stellar Writing Facebook page and Instagram as well. So that's the name of my company, Stellar Writing. The website for the business is stellarwriting.co, stellarwriting.co. And so there you can have more information about what I do as a writing coach. And there you can book a call. And so we can give you clarity about your writing, what you want to write, and and see from there if you know, our services make sense.
Okay, that's great. Now I'm just gonna end it. I'm gonna end it there. I'm gonna change. Let's see. Stop the video. Share the screen. So here these guys go. Mr. Jeffrey Wright. His book down here, Planting Seeds, and this is the 3 Pillars of Wealth. It's been great hanging out, talking to you guys again. I'm so glad we got to hang out again.
Thank you for having us.
And man, I wish you guys were going to be with me on Sunday. Mr. Robert Lavelle Rooks, he has 4 or 5 books out. One of them, it was dedicated to the Philippines. And so he's traveling around the world and he interviews people and he has quite an audience. And I think that book was for Filipino women. And I thought, wow, it's a Black man writing a book for Filipino women. And it's like, they love this book. Everybody, I could see everybody. And I was like, what is this book about? And I was like majorly impressed. So I think he's overseas right now and he's going to hang out with us on on this Sunday coming around 7 o'clock. Now, again, this is the First Lady Erica, and for the first 5 people that get with me, I'm going to give you this book. Leandre, I'm going to send you this book too.
Awesome.
How many words? It's an awesome book. So it was great hanging out.
Likewise. Thank you.
On YouTube, like and subscribe. Do you guys have YouTube channels?
Of course.
I didn't even say that.
I do.
It's in the works.
It's in the works. All right, get back to work. We don't want Jeffrey coming after you.
How bad do you want it, Leandre? How bad do you want it? How bad do you want it?
I don't know. Probably not that bad.
Good comeback. That was good.
All right, we have Jason on here. I don't know. Jason, did you have anything? Ooh, stop to share. Jason, I guess he'll hook up with you guys later on Facebook, and because they'll be tagged on this, Jason, so you can find them on Facebook.
Awesome.
If you find this post, they'll be tagged on there. And so we'll wrap that up.
All right. Have a good night. Thank you for
Thanks,
having
everybody.
us.
Y'all take care. Stay blessed. Stay safe.
Bye-bye.
Bye.